Welcome back, friends. Far above the frozen forests and icy coastlines of Scandinavia, something is quietly taking shape, and almost no one is talking about it. In a region better known for snow, silence, and stability, Sweden is building a next-generation fighter that is starting to make even the most powerful military planners pay attention. This isn't loud, flashy development with press releases and dramatic unveilings. There are no daily headlines, no viral concept videos. Instead, it's something far more serious and far more dangerous. It's focused, deliberate, and happening in the background, exactly where the most disruptive technology is born. While countries like the United States debate the future of their next-generation air dominance program, and China teases glimpses of its next stealth platforms, Sweden has taken a completely different path. No noise, no hype, just progress. A nation often associated with IKEA furniture and quiet diplomacy is now pushing forward one of the most advanced sixth-generation fighter concepts in the world. And here's what makes it even more surprising. It's not just an idea. This program, known as Flygsystem 2020, is real, it's funded, and it's already moving through critical development stages while much of the world is still arguing about budgets and timelines.
But this isn't just about building another fighter jet. What Sweden is working on could fundamentally change how air combat works. We're talking about an aircraft designed not just for speed or stealth, but for intelligence, powered by advanced software, deeply integrated with AI, and built to operate as part of a larger network that includes drones, sensors, and electronic warfare systems. This is not a lone wolf in the sky. This is the center of a system that can think, adapt, and respond faster than any traditional platform. And that's the real story here. Because in modern warfare, it's no longer just about who has the fastest jet or the biggest missile. It's about who can see first, decide first, and act first. Sweden understands this shift better than most. Instead of chasing size and raw power, they're focusing on flexibility, survivability, and intelligence, creating a platform that can evolve over time rather than become outdated the moment it enters service. So today, we're diving deep into one of the most secretive and fascinating fighter programs on the planet, a project that's moving quietly but could have massive global impact. Stick with us, because what you're about to learn might completely change how you see the future of air power. And if you're someone who respects nations that step up and innovate in defense, drop a proud in the comments below. Before we go further, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of viewers watch without subscribing, and your support is what allows us to keep bringing you these high-impact deep dives into the technology shaping tomorrow's battlefield.
Let's get something straight right from the start. When most people think about cutting-edge fighter jets, Sweden is not the first name that comes to mind. We usually think about the United States with its F-22 and F-35, or China with massive defense budgets and rapid expansion, maybe even Russia's Su-57, despite its well-known challenges. But Sweden? A country with a population smaller than Los Angeles County? It doesn't fit the usual picture. And yet, right now, that same country is quietly building a sixth-generation fighter that has defense experts around the world paying very close attention. And here's why this matters more than people realize. Sweden has a long history of doing something very few nations can pull off. They punch far above their weight. For decades, they've been building fighter jets that are not just effective, but incredibly smart in design. Take the Saab Gripen, for example. It's not the most expensive jet, it's not the flashiest, but it's one of the most practical and reliable fighters ever built. Countries that can't afford something like the F-35 turn to the Gripen, and for good reason. Brazil, Hungary, Thailand, the Czech Republic, they all chose Swedish engineering. Why? Because the Gripen can operate from highways. It needs smaller ground crews. It turns around fast, and it costs a fraction of what other modern fighters demand. Sweden mastered the art of doing more with less. But what's happening now is different. The Flygsystem 2020 project is not about saving money. It's not just about efficiency. This is about stepping into a completely new level of air combat. This is Sweden saying, we're not just here to compete, we're here to lead.
Everything changed after Sweden officially joined NATO in 2024. Overnight, their strategic position shifted. They went from being a highly capable neutral power to standing directly on the front line of a new era of tension in Europe. And with that came a hard truth. As capable as the Gripen is, it won't be enough for the battles of the 2030s and beyond. The Swedish Air Force knows this. They need something more advanced, more intelligent, more survivable.
And they're not wasting time. In October 2025, Sweden's Defense Material Administration made a serious move. They awarded Saab a contract worth around 2.66 billion Swedish kroner, roughly $276 million to push this program forward. And that's not the beginning, that's a continuation. This project has momentum, it has funding, and most importantly, it has commitment. Sweden is not window shopping here. They're fully invested in building something that could redefine their air power for decades. Now, here's where things get even more intense. The timeline is aggressive. By the end of 2025, basically right around the corner, they aim to complete the design drawings for a demonstrator aircraft. Not a concept, not a sketch, a real engineered platform. Then comes the next step, a flying prototype expected around 2027. And if everything goes according to plan, a full-scale production decision is targeted for 2030. Think about that for a second. While much of the world is still debating what sixth generation even means, Sweden is already moving toward building it, quietly, confidently, step by step. And that's exactly what makes this story so powerful, because sometimes the biggest shifts in military technology don't come with noise, they come with silence.
By 2035, if everything stays on track, Sweden could have fully operational sixth-generation fighters flying over the icy skies of the Nordic region. Think about that for a moment. While some of the world's biggest military powers are still debating costs, timelines, and strategy, Sweden is quietly moving forward. The United States' next-generation air dominance program is facing delays and budget pressure. Britain's Tempest program continues to shift timelines. But Sweden? They're not waiting. They're building, step by step, without noise, without hype, just progress. And that alone should tell you something serious is happening here. Now, the big question, what actually makes a fighter sixth generation? Because this isn't just a fancy label or marketing buzz. There are real game-changing technologies behind it, and Sweden is lining up every single one of them. First, stealth. But not the kind you're used to. Fifth-generation jets like the F-22 and F-35 already changed the game with radar-evading shapes and special coatings. But sixth-generation stealth goes much further. We're talking about aircraft built with advanced materials that can absorb radar across multiple frequencies, not just avoid detection, but reduce it from every angle. We're talking about lowering infrared signatures so heat-seeking missiles struggle to lock on. Even the sound profile is being reduced. Jets that are harder to hear, harder to track, and much harder to target. This isn't just hiding, this is disappearing. And companies like GKN Aerospace are already investing heavily to make these materials and manufacturing techniques a reality for Sweden's program. Second, artificial intelligence. And this is where things start to feel almost unreal. This isn't basic autopilot or simple assistance. This is AI acting like a true co-pilot. Imagine a system that can process thousands of data points in real time, radar signals, enemy movements, electronic threats, and instantly suggest the best possible action. It helps manage weapons, tracks multiple targets, coordinates with friendly forces, and keeps the pilot focused on the mission instead of being overwhelmed. It doesn't get tired, it doesn't panic, it doesn't miss details. In a high-speed combat environment where milliseconds matter, that kind of support can decide who wins and who doesn't make it home.
And then comes the real game changer, manned-unmanned teaming. This is where the future of air combat truly shifts. One pilot, inside a sixth-generation fighter, controlling multiple drones at the same time. Not just simple drones, but advanced, combat-ready systems. Picture a Swedish pilot flying over the Baltic Sea, surrounded by 3 or 4 loyal wingman drones. These drones can move ahead to scout enemy defenses, jam radar systems, launch missiles, or even draw enemy fire away from the main aircraft. Some may not come back, and that's part of the strategy. The human pilot stays protected, while the drones take the highest risks. It's no longer just one aircraft versus another. It's a network, a coordinated force fighting as one. It's like chess, but on a battlefield moving at supersonic speed. And instead of pieces made of wood, you have intelligent machines flying at Mach speeds, making decisions in real time. And this is exactly why what Sweden is building matters so much. Because they're not just creating another fighter jet, they're building a system that could redefine how wars in the air are fought. Before we go deeper into this, take a quick second to like the video and subscribe to the channel. More than 98% of viewers watch without subscribing, and your support helps us keep bringing you these powerful, in-depth stories about the future of military technology. Now, let's talk about the drones, because this is where the story really starts to feel like the future is already here. Early concept visuals show sleek, fast, almost blade-like unmanned aircraft flying alongside the main fighter. These aren't slow, basic drones. These are designed to keep up at high speed, possibly even supersonic, and they share key components with both the new fighter and the existing Gripen E. That's not by accident. That's smart engineering. This modular approach means everything becomes easier. Lower costs, faster production, simpler maintenance. A technician who already understands the Gripen doesn't have to start from zero. They can step right into this new system. And in real war, that kind of efficiency matters just as much as firepower. But here's where things get even more interesting. Sweden isn't trying to copy what the United States or China is doing. They're not chasing the biggest, the heaviest, or the most expensive platform. Instead, they're building something tailored to their own reality, and that might actually make it more effective. The design itself reflects that thinking. Current concepts point to a single-engine aircraft with a dual-wing layout, including a smaller forward wing, what engineers call a canard configuration. You've seen something similar on aircraft like China's J-20. But here, it's not just for looks. It gives the aircraft more lift and better control, especially at lower speeds. And that matters more than you might think. Because this jet isn't just designed to fly fast, it's designed to fight smart. It can slow down for precision strikes without losing stability. It can stay over a battlefield longer, watching, waiting, choosing the perfect moment to act. And most importantly, it can operate from shorter, rougher runways. That's a core part of Sweden's entire defense strategy. Sweden has always prepared for a different kind of war, not one where jets sit safely on massive airbases, but one where survival depends on movement and unpredictability. If conflict breaks out, Swedish aircraft won't be lined up in neat rows waiting to be targeted. They'll be scattered across highways, hidden forest strips, reinforced roadways, and small towns, ready to launch, rearm, and disappear again. The Gripen was built for this kind of warfare, and this new system, Flygsystem 2020, is taking that philosophy even further. You can't cripple Sweden's air force with a single strike, because there is no single target.
Now, look at the airframe itself. The design uses what's called a blended wing body, where the fuselage and wings flow together as one smooth shape. It looks clean, almost organic, but this isn't about style. It's about survival. Radar waves don't bounce straight back from this kind of surface. Instead, they scatter in different directions, making the aircraft much harder to detect. Combine that with advanced radar-absorbing materials, and you're looking at a platform that becomes extremely difficult to track. On top of that, twin vertical tail fins, or possibly even a future V-tail configuration, add another layer of control and stealth. These features help the aircraft maneuver sharply when needed, while also reducing drag and radar signature. Every single design choice is doing multiple jobs at once. It's not just about performance. It's about stealth, efficiency, cost, and long-term sustainability, all working together. And behind all of this is a very clear mindset. Saab's leadership has openly said that Sweden is in one of the strongest positions it has ever been in to develop a new fighter. Why? Because they're not starting from scratch. They've just completed major programs like the Gripen E and the Global Eye surveillance system. They have experienced engineers, modern digital tools that can simulate entire aircraft before a single piece is built,
and a network of international partners providing key components, while Sweden keeps full control over the design. That's the real advantage here. Not just technology, but how efficiently that technology is being built, tested, and deployed. And when you combine all of this, the drones, the AI, the stealth, the flexible design, you start to see the bigger picture. Sweden isn't just building a fighter jet. They're building a system designed to survive, adapt, and win in a future battlefield that's changing faster than ever before.
This is where Sweden's strategy becomes crystal clear. What they're building now isn't starting from zero. It's an evolution of something they've already mastered, the Gripen model. Around 85% of the Gripen E is built using components from partner companies, many of them outside Sweden. But here's the key difference. Saab brings everything together, integrates it, and controls the final system. That means Sweden gets world-class technology from the best suppliers on the planet, while keeping full control over how it's used. No foreign government can step in and say no. No one can block upgrades, restrict weapons, or cut off access in a crisis. And that same model is now being scaled up for Flygsystem 2020. It's independence by design, and in modern warfare, that kind of control is power. But what really sets Sweden apart is that they're not just building a fighter jet, they're building an entire combat ecosystem. You've probably heard the phrase system of systems before. It sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. The fighter itself is no longer the center of everything. It's just one piece of a much bigger network. That aircraft works together with multiple drones, some fast and stealthy, designed to push deep into enemy defenses, others slower and cheaper, built for surveillance, jamming, or support roles. Then you add weapons, sensors, satellites, ground stations, naval units, even soldiers on the ground, all connected in real time. Everything talks, everything shares data, everything reacts together. And inside that system, the pilot's role completely changes. The pilot is no longer just flying and fighting their own jet. They become something much bigger, a battlefield commander in the sky. They're managing assets, making decisions, directing drones, choosing targets. The AI handles the overwhelming flood of data, filtering it down into clear options. But the human still makes the final call. Do we send a drone to strike that radar site? Do we push deeper into contested airspace? Do we coordinate with allied aircraft nearby? The pilot decides, and the system responds instantly. And this is where the real advantage shows up. One Flygsystem 2020 aircraft, supported by just a few loyal wingman drones, could do the work of multiple traditional fighters. It can cover more area, engage more targets, and adapt faster, all while putting fewer human lives at risk. Instead of risking 4 or 5 pilots, you risk one. The drones take the danger. And if one of them is lost, it's not the same as losing a billion-dollar jet or a pilot who took years to train. That completely changes the cost of war and the way battles are fought. Now take it one step further. Sweden is also working on something called shared DNA across its platforms. That means the new fighter, the drones, and even the existing Gripen E all share common systems: engines, avionics, software, weapons interfaces. Everything is connected at a deeper level. This reduces costs, simplifies logistics, and makes training much easier. A pilot moving from Gripen E to this new system won't feel like they're starting over. It will feel familiar, just more advanced, more powerful. And here's the part that should really get attention. Sweden is already testing autonomous Gripen aircraft, not remotely controlled, but truly autonomous. AI flying missions with minimal human input. They're working with a company called Helsing, focused on advanced defense AI to make this possible. These aren't just experiments, they're the foundation for the drones that will fly alongside this 6th-generation fighter. So when you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, you start to understand what's happening here. Sweden isn't just building a better aircraft, they're building a smarter way to fight, a system where machines extend human capability, where decisions happen faster, where risk is reduced, and where control stays firmly in their own hands. And that has massive implications, not just for Sweden, but for the future of air power around the world.
Now let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture, because this is where things get serious. Sweden is no longer just a quiet, neutral player. Since joining NATO, It's now standing shoulder to shoulder with the United States and other allies, right on the edge of one of the most tense regions in the world, the Baltic Sea. On one side, you have Russia. On the other, NATO. And right in the middle, Sweden. That geography isn't just important, it's critical. Because whoever controls the skies over Scandinavia and the Baltic approaches controls the flow of power in that entire region. And by the 2030s, if Flygsystem 2020 enters service as planned, Sweden could be flying some of the most advanced fighters in that airspace, possibly even outperforming F-35s in certain mission scenarios, like dispersed operations, electronic warfare, and rapid response in harsh environments. And that creates a very interesting dynamic inside NATO. Because while the United States is dealing with rising costs and tough decisions around its next-generation NGAD program, Sweden might be building something more practical, more scalable. If Flygsystem 2020 proves successful, it doesn't just stay a Swedish project, it could become a NATO-wide solution. Think about countries like Poland, Finland, Norway, and the Baltic states. They all face similar threats. They all operate in similar climates. And they all need flexible, survivable air power that can function even if major bases are targeted. A system designed for highway operations, dispersed basing, and fast turnaround fits them perfectly. Suddenly, what started as a national program could evolve into a shared platform across multiple countries, spreading costs, strengthening interoperability, and creating a unified defensive shield across Northern Europe. We've seen this story before with the Gripen, and it could happen again on a much bigger scale. But there's another layer to this: innovation. Sweden is not playing it safe. They're pushing hard in areas where others have been more cautious. The heavy focus on manned-unmanned teaming, the idea of a fully connected system of systems, the concept of shared components across fighters and drones, these are bold moves. Risky, yes, but also potentially game-changing. If it works, Sweden won't just have built a new aircraft, they'll have helped define what sixth-generation air combat actually looks like.
That's why defense analysts around the world are watching closely. The planned demonstrator flights around 2027 won't just be a test of a new jet, they'll be a test of an entire philosophy. If Saab delivers, if the technology performs the way it's promised, it could validate Sweden's approach and influence how other nations design their own future fighters. But now, let's take a step back and be real for a moment, because none of this is easy. Building a sixth-generation fighter is one of the most complex and expensive challenges in modern engineering. Even the United States, with a defense budget larger than the next 10 countries combined, is struggling to balance cost, capability, and production. And Sweden is attempting to do this on a much smaller budget. That's a massive challenge. The cost issue alone is serious. The Gripen became successful partly because it was affordable, but Flygsystem 2020, that's a different story. Advanced stealth materials are incredibly expensive. AI systems require years of software development, testing, and constant updates. Every new technology needs to be tested, refined, sometimes rebuilt from scratch, and that burns through money fast. So while the vision is powerful and the progress is real, the road ahead is still full of risks. And that's what makes this story so compelling. Because Sweden is not just building a fighter, they're taking a calculated risk, trying to prove that a smaller nation with the right strategy and the right mindset can still shape the future of air combat.
Now, here's the reality check, and this part matters just as much as the vision. What Sweden is attempting is not cheap, and it's definitely not easy. The contracts we're seeing today are already worth hundreds of millions of dollars, but that's just the beginning. Full development, testing, and production of a sixth-generation fighter will cost billions. And for a country the size of Sweden, that's a serious financial commitment. This isn't a side project. This is a national-level bet on the future of their air force. Then comes the technology risk. Sweden is stepping into a space where only a few countries have real experience, the United States and China. That raises some tough questions. Can Sweden develop radar-absorbing materials as effective as what the US has refined over decades? Can their AI systems truly match, or even exceed, the level of battlefield intelligence being built elsewhere? And perhaps the biggest challenge of all, can they make manned-unmanned teaming actually work in real combat, not just in simulations? These aren't small hurdles. These are some of the hardest problems in modern defense technology, and right now, they're still open questions. And then there's time. The timeline sounds impressive. design work by the end of 2025, prototype flights by 2027, operational service by 2035. But let's be honest, programs like this almost never go exactly as planned. Delays happen, technical issues show up when you least expect them, testing reveals flaws that force redesigns, costs rise, budgets get squeezed. Between now and 2035, a lot can change. Even the global security situation could shift in ways no one can predict. And here's something people don't always talk about. The program itself is not fully locked in yet. The final decision on full-scale production won't come until around 2030. That means there's still a possibility Sweden could change direction. Maybe they decide to join another program like Britain's Tempest. Maybe they look at a foreign option. Or maybe economic pressure forces a rethink. Nothing is guaranteed at this stage.
But despite all of that uncertainty, one thing is very clear. Sweden is serious. They're not just releasing concept art or making bold claims. They're putting real money on the table. They're hitting development milestones. Engineers are running wind tunnel tests. New materials are being developed. Software is being written and tested. Partnerships are being formed. This is not theory anymore. This is real momentum. And that's what makes Flygsystem 2020 so important. It represents something rare in modern military aviation, a smaller nation refusing to sit on the sidelines while the future is decided by bigger powers. It's a mix of smart engineering, strategic independence, and real ambition. Sweden isn't trying to outspend the world. They're trying to outthink it. Will it completely dominate future air combat? That's a very high bar, and only time will tell. But one thing is certain, this program will matter, because the frozen skies over Scandinavia are about to become a testing ground for the next era of warfare, and Sweden is quietly, steadily building toward that future, one milestone at a time. If you found this deep dive valuable, take a second to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us keep bringing you these detailed stories about the technology shaping tomorrow's battlefield. The next few years will be critical for this program, and we'll be here to cover every step of the journey. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.